Welcome back, I'm Tedward. Welcome to the Tail of the Dragon here in North Carolina. We're about to head up into Tennessee. And welcome to the all-new 2026 Dodge Charger Scat Pack. But this one has an inline 6 Hurricane twin turbo power plant. So maybe if you weren't such a fan of the electrification of your favorite Hemi hooligan, this car might just scratch the internal combustion itch you've been waiting for. It makes 550 horsepower, 531 pound-feet of torque. It comes standard in all-wheel drive, although it does have rear-wheel drive mode. So you can drift it, you can do burnouts, and you can definitely do burnouts because it has the line lock as well. This is very fun. It's sitting on 4 305 section tires right now in this configuration. It's on all seasons, and we're going to see how that holds up on the Dragon. And it's on these gorgeous 20-inch wheels. Bringing us to a stop is going to be these 6-pot Brembos up front. And I got to hand it to Dodge for bringing us out to the Tail of the Dragon after it just snowed. It's going to be a little cold, potentially icy, definitely salty, but let's take a look around. So this is a huge hulking vehicle. The battery electric version of this weighs over 5,000 pounds. This one weighs 4,700 pounds. This is about 1,000 pounds lighter than the electric one. So if weight was your issue, well, this is still not light, but it's a heck of a lot lighter than the standard BEV car. Style-wise, it is definitely a Dodge. This new generation didn't speak to me immediately. It's growing on me a bit, but it is very hulking and large. They tried to kind of slim it down and lean it out a little bit by giving it this black roof, which is glass, and you can see through, that's an option. And then down here, that's black as well, that trim piece. So it kind of makes it a little bit smaller feeling. Around back, we've got the iconic lighting. There's no mistaking this for a Charger, except what's really interesting about this is that instead of having like a trunk, you've got a hatch. And most of that is glass. And I think that looks really good. It's a very handsome design. And honestly, because it's so large, you can put those rear seats down. I could probably fit my bike and all kinds of stuff. So this is designed to be a very practical vehicle for you. There's your little fuel filler funnel and your tire kit, no spare. And I just think that this is pretty interesting because the 4-door is the same cabin space as the 2-door. So they like add a door, but you don't necessarily get more space. It's the same car. Let's hit this, close that up. Down here on the lower bumper, you can see Charger embossed in there, and then a dual exhaust. So overall, I think this definitely still sports the muscle car vibe, but does it pass the muscle car test? Because now we're working with an inline 6 instead of the tried and true Hemi. I will predict that because they're going this path, they're putting internal combustion back in this car, I would imagine that they are going to make a Hellcat version. There's gotta be some 700 horsepower V8 monster on the way, but I don't know that yet. I just have to hope because we love to see it. Oh, baby. For the ICE car, they've had to reconfigure this front end quite a bit because they need to add all this cooling and stuff. So it does look a little different. And then up here, you've got this little guy, and you can see it even says 6-pack to remind you that it has an inline 6 and it's not an electric vehicle. All right, inside, first when we get to this door handle, we've got this little clicky guy. It's the same door handle I believe I just used on that Jeep Wagoneer S, which is an EV. You've got these massive, massive doors, and they've got this kind of carbon fiber trim, deviated stitching. This one has a lovely sort of red interior with 2 materials. You've got the leather and then this sort of crushed micro suede vibe. And then above, look at that wonderful glass roof. I love that because it gives you so much light into the cabin. It makes it feel even bigger. Now, it is a pretty big car, and that means you get decent legroom in the back. Look at this. This is great. If I was a passenger, as long as I'm not scaring the heck out of me as a driver, this is a good place to be. I've got my vents here from HVAC system. I've got 3-stage heated seats on the outboards, and yes, there is a middle seat, and let me guess, 2 cup holders. Yes. Right here, USB-C chargers, one for each outboard passenger. And then they've cleaned up this design from the previous generation of Scat Pack with the ICE engine. This is a little slimmer, it's a little sleeker. You can see Charger written in there. Deviated stitching. They do a really good job with interiors on these cars. I think that they look the part. There's even some Alcantara sort of micro suede right here. So there's great upholstery. Everything feels a little more premium than it has any business being. The only point I think I will make is that it's got this pistol grip shifter, and it doesn't feel very premium. I think they got all the materials right along here. It's just it's not quite it, and it feels a little plasticky, and I interact with that when I get in the car, and I want it to be really, really solid. So if I had one tip for a next year of this car, is just update this a little bit, make this feel a little more premium. Look, it's like an airplane. It says no step, so yeah, they don't want you stepping on that. The real star of the show, though, is what's under the hood. Actually, I think I have to have this, maybe like this first. There we go. We've got some other friends up here enjoying the Dragon and the Subarus. But the real star of the show is the Inline 6, the 6-pack. So under here is your power plant. That is gonna be the Inline 6. Now it's pretty tall, it sits pretty tall in here, and they actually made the hood a little bit taller than this engine. So as they say, they didn't shrink wrap it around this engine. Part of that is because they wanted to have better aerodynamics, and it actually made this car more slippery if they did that. But it is really refreshing to get under the hood of one of these Chargers and see an internal combustion engine. So let's get it started up, rev it up a couple times. You can make some choices about whether or not this is for you. It definitely makes the right noises for an inline 6. All right, let's close it up and get going. Pay our respects. Mwah. Okay, let's get out of here. Ooh, I kind of dig this ambient lighting. The way they did these doors, originally I wasn't totally sold because I prefer a handle, like an actual handle. They went with these buttons. See what I mean? But then, see, that changes to orange, so that way if it's open, people know, warning. And then now we've got this, this is really kind of neat. I see what they were going for in here. I want to drive this at night. In here, a little bit of space, and you've got more charging abilities with your cigarette lighter port. That looked like the Topher. Now, I've chosen the surreptitious silver color in an attempt to avoid the authorities. Welcome to Tennessee, baby. We're out here on the infamous Tail of the Dragon. 318 curves in 11 miles. And we're doing this in a car that shouldn't really perform here. This is a really tight, winding mountain road out here in the Smokies. And this is a pretty big, hulking muscle car. But Dodge was confident enough that this was going to be decent for them to show off the capabilities of their new standard all-wheel drive 6-pack turbo Hurricane high output Charger. We've got an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Using the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. So this engine is pretty nice because you've got these twin Garrett turbos that spool up way down low, somewhere around 2,500 RPM. Throttle response is pretty quick. But there's more to the story than just putting a six-pack in it. Of course, we all want a Hemi. We want a V8 Scat Pack for sure. And maybe that'll be occurring down the line when we get a Hellcat version of this. But the battery electric version of this car was not exactly well received. And it's heavy. This is almost 1,000 pounds lighter. And it still weighs about 4,700 or 4,800 pounds. So the question is, can it hustle around the Dragon? And around the Dragon on a cold day with salt on the roads, this is doing pretty good. Now, the Dragon's pretty brutal because there's really no runoff out here. If you go off the road, you go off the road. So I have to give Dodge a lot of credit for their confidence in the car and the journalists that are coming to drive it to come and use this car on these roads. This thing is incredibly wide. You saw from the outside how big this thing is. And while this isn't a narrow road, it's not a wide road, and it doesn't make for the ability to kind of place it within a lane. Now, they've said they've dialed out 43% of the understeer since the previous Scat Pack. And I gotta say, I'm not really fighting the front end of this car. But what I don't have is a ton of road feel through my fingertips. So I do just need to drive it a little gently and make sure that I'm aware of what's going on up front. But I think this is genuinely, like, hooking up on this road a lot better than I anticipated. Wide open. Third gear is actually really perfect for this road because you can kind of get way down low, get into the throttle, get back into boost. It gives you an idea of the entire RPM range of what this engine is capable of, and it's a pretty broad torque curve, so it's working. Gonna shuffle steer a little bit, but that's only because this road is incredibly tight. It's just switchback after switchback, which is probably gonna make me nauseous. And that's a good thing. If the car makes me nauseous, then it's doing its job. Yeah, it'll push a little bit, but you can just recover it with some liftoff. You know, I'm not finding myself in any unsavory situations here. A little bit of noise from these 305s. They're all seasons. Not surprising they're making some noise trying to hang on for dear life in this car. I do love the way this thing accelerates. We loved it in the RHO. I got a little taste of that 1500 RHO. And when I heard they were putting that engine in this, I got a little excited. I'm a little disappointed noise-wise. Not because this sounds bad, but just because it's not a V8. I'm sorry. Look at that, hooks up. Yeah, a little bit of noise from these tires, but they're just getting a little warm. We gotta be cautious out here though, because it was frosty and snowy earlier today and yesterday, and we do not want to find any icy patches in a 4,700 pound coupe. I'm just kind of pushing it a little bit just to see like what happens on throttle, and it's sorting itself out really nicely. Like, this is a safe car to drive. I thought this was going to be a lot sketchier today. It's not. Very approachable. One thing I've noticed is that the placement of this rear view mirror, it does block my view a little bit in those right-hand corners. It can get a little tricky. There's Eddie X. Wasn't sure if he was pointing a roadkill or pointing to me. Getting these brakes a little bit. Yeah, I mean they'll stop you. They'll bring you down for sure. I don't know how long they last on a racetrack if you get them really hot. I'm trying to be kind of ginger on them because I don't really want to find the boiling point of this fluid. I mean, a Caterham on the Dragon, it is not, but it's a formidable little ride. It's huge. Yeah, this is a road you just do not go 10/10ths on. You know, maybe if you're mid-corner and it's really slow and you're just kind of pushing the tires a little bit, sure, but the Dragon must always be respected. You do not want to become a Killboy photo, crashed into the woods. And you definitely do not want to go head on with oncoming because there's a lot of civilians out here too. It's not just enthusiasts. This place is full of normal traffic. I mean, this is like a commute for some people, which I know sounds crazy, but Angeles Crest Highway is the same way. I thought I had all my stuff like positioned nicely and secure, but this road will loosen anything. Wow, what a sound. The thing about the Dragon is that we all have a road that we like back home. We've all got that road, but there's usually like one or two corners on it that are cool. And you're like, oh man, we got to hit it hard. We got to get that corner right. We got to make sure there's no traffic. The Tail of the Dragon is 11 miles of that corner, of the best corner you've ever had. Except there's no guardrails, literally and figuratively, because if things go wrong out here, you really are kind of on your own. The previous Scat Pack, I always thought, now we're in North Carolina because we switched from Tennessee to North Carolina. I always thought that the old Scat Pack, the old Challenger, felt like a big Miata, especially the 6-speed. It was balanced, it was neutral, it was easy to place, it behaved exactly like a car. And I know it's kind of a big hulking thing, but if you knew how to drive and you had car control, that car was going to treat you and reward you really well. And that's what I was hoping out of this. This doesn't feel quite the same. However, it is behaving incredibly neutral, and I do have, some systems on. It says traction off, but I'm sure there is still nannies in the background, and that's fine. I'm not trying to test the limits of a long car on a little road. That's never a good idea. But I do think this is plenty playful. Look at that. While we're out here stuck behind a little bit of traffic, let's talk about this steering wheel. We've got a flat top and a flat bottom. Now, it's still rounded, so I don't find it to be that cumbersome when I'm doing sort of a slow release in a tight corner. But I don't need a square top and a square bottom here. I really would prefer it to be round, and a lot of automakers are doing this. It's a sporty looking thing. Some have done it because they need to open up the display. When you look at the Ford Expedition, that's like a rectangular steering wheel. It really has to be that way, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see the dashboard. I don't really prefer that either. I think round is okay. And maybe what would be cool is if there was like an option for an Alcantara round steering wheel. So Dodge is highly customizable. If you think Porsche is customizable, once you look at what you can do with the color combinations and all kinds of different add-ons and stuff with Dodge products, Porsche starts to almost look average. I think they said you could have 7 million combinations of things on a Durango. So there's a lot of options, and maybe just maybe they will offer a round wheel on the Scat Pack. Patience is key. I think if you're not patient with this, it could get bad. But it rewards it. Overslowed for that because I wasn't sure how that Q was going to do on that corner, and I didn't want to play ball with him. I just wanted to stay away. Kind of impressed with the low end torque. There's a little bit of lag, but nothing really to write home about. Comes in nice and early. And I really like the throttle response. The tuning on the throttle is lovely. A lot of automakers, when they make sporty cars, they go a little too crazy on the throttle tuning, and then they make it harder to drive because it's so sensitive and just no fun. This is really easy to just get in and drive. Once you get used to this weight and how to manage it, it's fine. But it's also not like we haven't learned how to manage heavy cars in the recent past just because EVs have come out and we've been driving those and caning them up mountain roads too. So none of it's unfamiliar. This is a fun little package. What really comes down to is, are you good without the V8? And so far, this is putting out more power, more torque than any Scat pack. I think it's 65 horsepower more than the last Scat pack, 50-something pound-feet of torque more. So in that regard, it's definitely more, despite 2 less cylinders and 2 extra turbos. But I don't know that they've really taken away from sort of the sharp driving experience on throttle. Look at this guy. What a legend. Thank you, sir. I'd give him the flashers, but can't find them in time. This is not the road you want to be caught off guard on at all. Planted. I mean, I just thought this was maybe, I don't want to say I thought it was going to be messy, but I didn't think this was going to be as fun. When I thought about what this car is on this road, I thought, that might be a little sketchy. And this is far less sketchy than anticipated. So let's get it out to some normal roads, because you're probably not driving the tail of the Dragon every day. But if you did take it down to the Dragon, look at this. Highlander crossing double yellows. I don't have to do it, and I'm going faster. Cuckoo banana is what you find out here. So you never know. If you're leaning into a corner on your motorcycle, you may end up eating a headlight of a Highlander because they've decided to cross double yellows for like absolutely no reason. Let's get it out to some normal roads, because you're likely not driving it on the Dragon every day, and we need to know, how is this going to commute? How is it going to drive? What's the interior quality like? Because I haven't really paid attention to any of that yet, because I'm just trying to stay alive right here. Now that we're literally out of the woods, we can start examining this as a normal car. I am getting some interior NVH. There's a noise here and a noise there. The one down here is really interesting. It's like in the steering wheel or something. If you can hear that. So despite having pretty nice materials, there are definitely still some rattles and things like that. But that's not to be expected in something like this. But listen here. All right. This engine quiets way down when you're chilling. It is really relaxed. I mean, it really disappears. So it's kind of like you're going from this shouting beast on throttle to it may be as quiet as the electric version. I love the Smoky Mountains. So one of my favorite movies, total sidebar, is Death Proof, Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. It was part of the Grindhouse double feature. And there's a scene, I mean, the longest scene of the movie is a chase scene in a Challenger, the Vanishing Point Challenger, essentially a 446 pack. And they play ship's mast, and then they get in a big tussle with Kurt Russell, who's hunting them down. And it's just, this is the car I want to be driving in Tennessee, because that all takes place in Tennessee. That's kind of part of the whole deal. And I just think a Charger in Tennessee is a great move. So good work on you, Dodge, because this kind of brought up all of my Vanishing Point and Death Proof dreams. It's a pretty relaxed driving experience. Not a whole lot of effort has to go into the steering. They said they improved the on-center performance of the steering feel. Yeah, I'd say so. I need to compare it back to the last car, really. It's hard to compare to the last car, though, just because the last car was just so raw and simple. This, it feels just slightly more synthetic. You can toggle through a few different screen layouts. So this gives us our trans temperature, oil pressure, oil level, oil life, boost pressure. It'll do 30 PSI, coolant temp, and tires, which is kind of nice. Of course, fuel economy. Then if we cycle through this, we can simplify and just have our speedo. We can get our map going. It's kind of nice. And go back. Now, the other thing is this screen is fine. It's fine. It was very laggy when I first got in here. So that was bothering me. We were setting up the nav to do what we needed to do, and then we were adjusting a couple things on this screen, and it definitely, ooh, hang on. I know I'm not really supposed to go this. I guess I'm allowed to do this. This is kind of crazy, and there's nobody out here, and I need to show you what I'm talking about here, because there's snow up in them there hills. And this is incredible. Oh yeah. This is the shot, baby. Look at this. Oh my goodness. There's Mike Musto. Have at it. Dude. Oh my God. Let's get a few minutes out on the highway. This is a nice Grand Tour. Its long wheelbase is suited for high speeds. It has a top speed of 177. I don't recommend that. You will probably go straight to jail. But that does mean that this is going to hang on to that like nice 75 to 80 mile an hour cruise speed that you might have on a long road trip really comfortably. And it's easy to change lanes. It's not twitchy at all. I mean, this is just a wonderful Grand Tour. I mean, that's the beauty of the big car thing, you know. Maybe we were in kind of a silly place to be on the tail of the dragon in a big car, but this is where it feels really at home. And if we need passing speed, you've got that in droves. We're definitely not doing any kind of legitimate fuel economy test today. I am burying this throttle constantly just for fun. That's the Dodge way. It's turning about 2,000 RPM at 75 miles an hour, so it's not turning it terribly fast. Just kind of sipping along. So final thoughts on the new Charger Scat Pack with the inline 6. The 6-pack, the high output. What am I putting on a blinker for? This is such a steep turn, I instinctively went to turn my blinker. Good Lord. I like it out here in the mountains. So look, the electric version of this car was overall not well received. I haven't driven it. I can't compare this to that. But this car seems to take on the Dodge heritage of being a little crazy, of being a little over the top. It's got line lock. It can do rear wheel drive mode so you can drift it. It's got 550 horsepower, 531 pound-feet of torque from a pretty decent tried and true twin turbo inline 6 that we like in the RHO truck. So that makes sense. Now, it doesn't make the sounds that we've come to love from the previous generation. And I don't feel as drawn to this car athletically as I did in the previous generation. To me, rowing my gears in a wide body Scat pack, oof, that's good motoring. This car, however, is good, but it's still going to have some squiggles and noises in the dashboard and thing. And I think that this will appeal more to the previous generation fans than the electric version of this car, despite however much power that car has and whatever performance numbers it can do. I just think this is more up their alley. So I would recommend driving it, see if it's for you. It's very large, so you're certainly going to be able to fit your friends and your people and your stuff and your bike and everything in the back of this thing. And it's 2 inches wider than the previous wide body Scat pack. So, you know, it definitely has a presence on the road. It's basically like an Aventador when you look at this thing. I think I knew what I was getting into with this engine, but this transmission is a little surprising to me. I like it. It's not a bad transmission. It just has some quirks in some situations where it maybe bucks a little bit, or it's a little too eager on a start, or a shift is a little strange. Is, however, formidable for doing the job, holding my gear and giving me those crispy, snappy upshifts, because it feels really good when you're getting on it. So, you know, I can't fault it for that. I just think that if you're trying to baby it and be really, really gentle, sometimes it might do some things that, I don't know, I didn't quite expect. But otherwise, this is fun. I'm having a good time, and that's the point. Dodge is a good time. Dodge always wants to party, and I believe this is just the introduction to the party, because I can only imagine what's going to come next now that they understand how to get an ICE engine in this platform. So that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you think. I'm sure you've already done that if you've made it this far anyway. But, you know, I thought it was kind of fun hustling this almost 5,000 pound coupe around Tail of the Dragon. Never done that before. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, full brake, full throttle, launcher. That one launched a lot better.
Much better, cleaner run on that shift. Thank you.
So, bro.
All right, where are we at today? 8.1 at 90.
Okay.
All right, so now we're getting somewhere.
We dropped quite a bit that time.
That's pretty good.
From an 8.5 to an 8.1. That's
Yeah.
a big drop.